Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast, where we're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels, and if you've ever wanted to know how focusing on a challenge as a team can lead to higher impact on sustainable investments, then guess what? Today's the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. And I promise, you know why? Because today's guest is not only the mom of 2 gorgeous girls, she's also the wife of a self-proclaimed rebel. She's also practicing physical therapy as well as real estate investing. She's a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, as well as a clinical doctorate in physical therapy. And she's on a mission to find similarities between social models of healthcare, as well as the impact of social, environmental, and economic sustainability. She is the founder of Crave the Planet. She's also the head of investor relations at Sustainable Investor Group, and she is the host of the super popular podcast, The Art of Sustainable Investing. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Morgan Fielder. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Billy, how are you?
I am doing very, very well, and good morning to Morgan. So everybody will understand why I just said that in a few minutes. Don't worry, some of these things that kind of happened to me. So no, really looking forward to today's conversation. Love your energy, love the things that you are doing. Glad that we've had a chance to connect, and really looking forward to the Going Long family finding out more about you and how you're making a massive impact on the world today. So as you know, though, Morgan, I like to ask everybody kind of like the same 5 questions, 2 in the beginning, 3 in the end, and kind of in the middle, we're going to chat about you and the things that you're doing and the people's lives that you're impacting. And then we'll kind of take it forward and talk about the future. But before we even get started, let's get into the first question. Help us understand, because I get to ask a little bit different question today. Where exactly do you live in the world?
Well, I live in Landstuhl, Germany. So I'm right at the edge of the forest and the moors, and I live in a castle.
Wow. That's really, really awesome. That's phenomenal.
It's not a real castle. It might be kind of a faux castle. We only have 3 turrets.
Well, that's fine, but it's like a castle-like, so it's a castle. You're good. You're good. And
Yes.
Plus, you're on this side of the pond with me, so that's actually awesome as well. So we're gonna give a lot of insight to people that are really looking to have this sustainable impact, as well as, like we like to talk about here, long-distance investing. So what the next question is really, and we love to start off with some positivity here. So what is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours, Morgan?
Well, Billy, first I have to say thank you so much for highlighting the positivity, because that's very, very rare in this world. And that's definitely why I'm drawn to your podcast. But today I had an experience with my husky where we were walking up to the Bismarckturm in Landstuhl. It's this overlook over this huge valley in Germany. And I made it up, I made it down a solid hour, and it was completely fine. Now, this is sort of incredibly positive for me, because a month ago I tore my meniscus and damaged the cartilage in my left knee. And lo and behold, it was okay. So I'm on the road to recovery, and that makes me really, really happy.
Fantastic. So that's awesome. And it's these things especially when we're recovering from physical injuries and things like that, that these milestones really help us to get focused on the recovery point where we are, and also gives you the motivation to continue to move forward and get even stronger. So fantastic. You know, one of the things I was going to ask you, because maybe a lot of people don't know the German geography. So kind of, if you were to say Landstuhl, where exactly would that be located in Germany?
Sure. It's about an hour and a half southwest of Frankfurt, which is on the west side on the border with France. So it's this beautiful, beautiful countryside where there's a lot of wineries and forests and all these sort of ancient castles. And it's actually home to about 50 to 60,000 Americans who are here either in service in the military or as contractors or support staff. So it's great because you've got that vibe of the German nature and landscapes, but you also have a little bit of the creature comforts of running into some other Americans.
Right on. Sounds awesome. And I used to spend a lot of time flying between Barcelona and Frankfurt, and so familiar with the area as well myself, but appreciate you also painting the picture. And so, like, here's the thing, Morgan, I tried like at a really 50,000 foot level to tell a little bit of your story. But one of the things we love here on the Going Along podcast is really to have each and every one of our guests, and Morgan, since you're today's featured guest, would love for you to tell your backstory in your own words. And if you could also highlight, like, so what are some of the major decisions that you've made to get to this point of your journey and the decisions that you made to really focus on the way that you want to have real estate as an asset to really make an impact on people's lives?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting at the beginning, I was a little girl growing up in Idaho, and I experienced so much peace running through the mountains. That was my thing. And it became so good that I was able to sort of be competitive in track and cross country. And it was kind of, I had this dream. I wanted to be like Magnum PI because he was this Navy Special Forces, went to the Naval Academy and had all these adventures. And, so I worked really, really hard on my running so that I could get a scholarship and get accepted to the Naval Academy. That was like what I wanted to do. But there were some moments where the stress, especially on a single sport, where you just start to get really wrapped up in your own head, and all your training, everything that you had worked so hard for could just go out the window because your mindset wasn't right. And what changed everything was a coach kind of got me to lay down under the bleachers, and he did some sports psychology, basically mindfulness meditation with me. And that was the moment I realized that we are not our thoughts, we are not our feelings. And that if we can just sort of tap into our bodies and relax our minds, then we can sort of overcome these hurdles that are sort of self-imposed. And from then I was successful, won the state championship, got accepted to the Naval Academy. And, that was that. I got to live my dream. So from the academy, I met all my best friends, my husband, and fortunately or unfortunately, we were 2001 graduates, and we shipped straight off to war. And that was, a challenging time. Between my husband and I, on opposite deployment schedules, we saw each other for about 3 months over the course of the first 4 years of our marriage. But when it came back, we decided that, we didn't actually decide, but as things go, you get pregnant when you come back from war. And we had our first child. And I thought, I still want to serve, but I don't want to be in the Navy any longer. And I decided to go to physical therapy school because that's a great match. So trying to help people regain their mobility, their independence, and get back to the things that they love. So when we had our 2 kids, I went to PT school. And then the next 10 years, I've been practicing in Germany, practicing in Korea, San Diego, from all different kinds of patients. And the one thing I noticed was, again, that mindset thing. When you are either very old and having problems with your mobility and you have all kinds of, actual diseases versus, a fit special forces. The one thing is that mindset that helps you be able to kind of connect and then regain what you want. So all things were going really, really great. And then, it's again, noticing that the technical side of things is not so difficult, but really that mindset and that connection was really the challenge. There was a moment when my daughter asked me, what am I doing for the environment? We were hiking in the Alps or the Dolomites, and, it was so peaceful and so clear. And at that moment, when she asked me, I had no answer. I felt really kind of at a loss. So I thought really hard about it. And while I love helping people and serving one-on-one counseling and working in the clinic, I thought, it's time to make a bigger impact. And climate change is definitely one of the biggest problems that we have. And by starting Sustainable Investors Group, my goal now is that same thing, that connection between all the different pieces and parts where we can unite, economic and environmental and social impact together. Then as a group, collaborating, we can actually get towards our goals and preserve outdoor freedom for the next generation. So along the way, we invested in real estate the entire time, and that's been very great. So I'm starting to see that real estate can be that vehicle to help us meet climate change goals in the future.
So wow, there's a lot that I'm definitely going to unpack, or we're going to unpack together. And I guess the biggest thing that, a number of things resonate with me personally, because at the same time in 2001 when you were being deployed, and also would like to thank you for your service as well. So thank you very much for that. It was the same time I was starting a new journey, coming and moving to Europe in 2001. And so it's now been a 20-year journey. And so that's something that also resonates with me. But I'm just thinking about you and as you're walking with your daughter through the Dolomites and she asked you the question, like, what are you doing for the environment? And I don't know, how old was your daughter at that time?
She was 11.
Okay, so 11 years old.
Yeah.
So as an 11-year-old who's walking with her mom in the Dolomites, which is an amazing place, by the way, if you've never been there, everybody needs to go there.
Unbelievable.
It is just like over the top. So everybody needs to go there. It's one of those, it's picturesque.
Alpine cows have the tinkly bells on their necks, and
it's amazing.
Unbelievable.
And we'll talk about that after we do this. But I guess where does your 11-year-old come up with this? Like, because that's a huge question. Like, Mom, what are you doing for the environment?
Right.
Where's that come from?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes from, our complete peace when we're out in nature. And that's been kind of a theme for our families, to get outside. If you're having problems, go out in the forest, take a walk, get out in the garden, go for a bike ride, hike, etc. And all of a sudden, like, your stress just sort of melts away. And that's something that we've sort of always encouraged our children to do. And also as a family, of course. So the kids now, I'm so hopeful because they're so much more aware than our generation. They have so much more knowledge at their fingertips. The internet's kind of a good and a bad thing, right? But they're aware, and they are not satisfied with the status quo. They are actually kind of fearful for the future. I've met several people in their 20s who are afraid to have kids because they don't know what kind of planet is going to be available for their kids.
Yeah, and so this is just number one is the awareness. Number two, and it's just the general awareness of what's happening with the kids in schools and things like that. But more importantly, what you and your husband foster at home as well, right? And so being able to have the security to ask that question, because it is a huge question. And then since then, it's had such a major impact on you. It really is one of the ways that is driving the way that you look of helping investors, right? And how we do that through different types of, whether it's apartments or whatever. And we'll come to that. But I guess one of the questions I always like to get out of the way in the very beginning, and this is maybe a little bit self-serving, but after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I thought, I'm going to buy this property and it's going to be in the backyard and all this kind of stuff. And everybody always says, buy in your backyard, buy where you are, and don't do anything else. And I think if I understood you correctly, you said that you were in Korea, that you were in different places in the US, and you were in Germany. And knowing a little bit that I know about you, I'm just curious if you can help us understand, just in terms of your investing experience across these different places, number one, and then I do have a follow-up question to that. So just be ready for my follow-up question.
Yeah. So as far as my personal investing experience, long-term buy and holds, using local property management, but doing it from afar. doing house hacks before that was actually a thing just sort of made sense to me. Someone else pays half your mortgage. And then investing in Germany. So there is such a large population here of Americans, and they have a unique situation where they get a very large housing stipend from the US government. One of my German friends said that our housing stipend is about the average salary of the German people who live here. So it has there's this strange asymmetry. And we found it to be very profitable to invest in buy and hold single families here near the bases, because the Americans who are coming here are kind of nervous and afraid. It's their first time overseas, and they prefer to deal with an American landlord oftentimes. And then as far as apartment investing, some of our network were actually the operators of the investment in the multifamily in Oklahoma. And, everyone's overseas while they're either passively like myself or actively investing. So it's Perfect. not so challenging.
Yeah, exactly. So before you go forward even more, right? Because as you know, I'm an active investor. I do syndications for accredited investors, and I live here in Europe, and I do that back for the U.S. But it's really about the follow-up question, right? And so you have experience in terms of living in Germany, investing back in the United States. You're in Germany. You've also recognized a market opportunity, and so you're working to serve people in a relatively local location. Mm-hmm. But the books tell us to only invest in our backyard, like invest where you live, right? And don't invest beyond, because it's a risk. And so the whole point of this podcast is, like, I fundamentally believe that you can live wherever you want to live, right? You have to get a couple things together. But like, what was it about being able to invest long distance, whether you do it actively or passively, right? It's one, mm-hmm. it's that you live in one place and your investment is somewhere else. Like, what gave you the mental fortitude to be able to say, you know what? I'm going to go against what all the books tell me, what everybody's talking about normally on the television, and I'm going to do this long distance. What was the secret for you?
You know what? When everyone else is looking left, I look right. I would rather be a big fish in a small pond. And with the internet and with the resources that we have, it's not that hard to investigate and find good deals. I think that with the group investments, if you're passive, like it's really about, doing your basic research, but having that strong relationship with the general partners and trusting in the team. I fully believe that that's the sort of secret sauce there, is trusting the people that you're giving your money to invest. As far as, the challenges of looking in different places, first thing that I do is talk to the agents and lenders and brokers and sort of get a feel for kind of what the specifics are. But, it's just being open-minded and kind of spotting a good opportunity.
Cool. So number one is just the fact of the matter, this is part of your DNA. So if people are looking right, you tend to look left, right? And so I think there's opportunities for every single person. And I don't think long distance investing is for everybody, even though I have this podcast and I want to be able to also bring and attract other people like you, Morgan, that can share your story, because it's not for everybody. If you don't sleep well at night, unless you can literally wake up at 2:00 in the morning and drive and make sure that your property's there, well, probably long distance investing is not going to be a good thing for you, because the return on sleep, the ROS, is going to be very negative.
ROS is very important.
It's very, very important. It's like one of the main metrics that you will see on every single pro forma. Like, I think it's like at the very bottom, right? Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is you talk about something that is also very important here, because one of the things we talk about is, say, look, be very clear on what it is that you want personally from an investment, and whatever that is, whether it's cash flow, tax benefits, blah, 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 blah. Then afterwards, you find the location where you're going to give you the highest probability of getting that. And then afterwards, and I completely agree with you, Morgan, like, the secret sauce is the team. That's long distance. If you don't have the right team, or the team that is aligned to you, your values, and what you're trying to achieve, your ROS is going to be terrible. So probably don't need to do it. And then afterwards, whether it's a large piece of energy equipment, whether it's a large mobile home park or a multifamily building, it doesn't really matter, because everything is aligned. So I love the fact that you said that. And at the same time, you said like another big word, which was trust with your general partner. And so when you're long distance, like, how do you go about being able to develop this trust from probably somebody is in a place that you're not located with, an asset is in a place where maybe they're located, maybe they're not, and things like that. But how do you go about creating this trust?
So with the trust, it's about getting to know the goals. Like if they ask me what my goals are first versus just pitching me their deal, okay, that's a big, strike in their favor. And also having that conversation. So especially if it's long distance relationships, if they're not communicating on a regular basis with you as an investor, and there's months gaps between updates, that's not going to fly. Additionally, it's the time of Zoom calls. So you can just get on the phone or the computer and talk to people. And if they're not doing sort of, monthly meetups or some other version of that, then I would be suspicious as well. If you're kind of looking for these things, you'll get so much spam deals sent your way. But really, if someone doesn't even approach you about their deal first, but just wants to get to know you and your goals, that's a good sign.
Okay. And I don't know what you're doing right now, going along family. I don't know if you're on the treadmill, if you're cooking dinner, if you're in your car, but what you just said, I just want to make sure. It sounds like it's being able to have or work on creating a relationship and not trying to make a sales pitch.
100%.
Okay. Yeah. There's something to be said about actually being genuine and trying to understand the person that's in front of you. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think a lot of times we try to create these real big models and what we can do and trust and all that kind of stuff, but it's just having a genuine interest in trying to get to understand the person and recognizing that things aren't going to always work out. So, but just at least find out and be interested in the other person. So thank you for that. So I do want to come to talk about one of the things that is super passionate, that you're super passionate about. And I know we talked about it before, and I mentioned your podcast, The Art of Sustainable Investing, which I think everybody from the Going Along family, you need to actually go over and check out Morgan's podcast and listen to a couple episodes and leave her some really positive reviews, which would be great. And honest reviews, give her some feedback. So one of the things is, how do you get, so I know your daughter asked you this question, but then you went from that and you are also now helping others. You're making an investment and you're focused on really the sustainability aspect of investing in and through real estate. So maybe talk us through a little bit more about that, and also how your podcast ties into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm using the podcast as a platform to reach as many people as possible. I know there are a lot of us who, maybe are spilling out of your 401k, or, have recently sold something and you want to reinvest it, but you want to tie it to something that has purpose beyond just the financial return. Just people that I talk to all the time. And that's kind of hard to find. It's almost like, it's either profit or purpose. It's either make money or make a difference. It's the idea, make a bunch of money, then give it away for charity. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can create a circular economy. And that's what I've been studying now for about the past 6 months, is kind of the sort of the edge of this market. They already say real estate is alternative investing, but there's even more like alternative investing, where, you can't even imagine that it's possible to basically invest in a solar park very similar to a multifamily syndication with very similar returns and similar or even better risk because of, the goals that are stated by the Paris Agreement. The United States kind of getting back on board with trying to put additional funding and tax credits. A lot of people just don't even know that that's possible. So with this, all forms of real estate, whether it's farmland to do regenerative farming, whether it's land to build a solar park, whether it's actually using more sustainable materials and investing in carbon capture or carbon capture technology, there's these sort of middle ground where you get asymmetric returns and reduced risk, where it's not quite so wild as venture capital, but it also has a little bit more than just your standard real estate investment. So with the podcast, I'm inviting people to kind of discuss and try to problem solve on the podcast itself. And through that, I'm learning also. So right now for our personal, so with our business, we're actually investigating 3D printing because that technology is very, very close to being accepted in the building or international building codes. Don't know if it's viable. So we're working through the case study of it right now. Other things we're open to as well. So that's kind of where we're at the moment.
Okay, well, that's awesome. So, and it sounds like, having this passion for, this conversation that you're having with your daughter in the Dolomites is giving you this perspective on really not saying it's either or. I'm a big believer in what you're talking about as well. It's the power of and. How can you do something that is profitable and at the same time is something that will make a positive impact on the environment, and being able to find where those different Venn diagrams come together, and then creating really a group of people that are interested in the same thing, moving towards one another. I mean, one of the things, I think you and I talked about this before, but I mean, carbon capture, this is one of the things that I personally have been really, really focused on recently, because not only are we helping the environment in terms of being able to have this technology, which has been around for really quite a long time. Most people are like, well, how is this? Like, it's been around since 1930s. But it's just doing it in a more innovative way, which is saying, okay, now for those people who are accredited investors that are looking to do something that's socially responsible and be able to profit from that, we're able to find that power of and bring it together. So, in that regard, I really, really like what it is that you're doing, and the fact that you're able to bring people together to do very similar things. And by the way, you should also go check out Morgan's LinkedIn. She always has all these really awesome articles and things like that. So I think you just had something recently on cement or cement.
So one of the carbon capture technologies that's emerging is where they actually inject CO2 into the cement as they're pouring it. So talk about a circular thing. Like, we are going to emit carbon. We all like having the power on and dishwashers and driving cars. I wish there was a way to say, hey, everybody just use less energy, and we should, but technology and science has got to be the path forward to try to sort of create a circular economy and, move towards a regenerative path.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Hans Rosling, but he wrote a book called Factfulness. Are you familiar with Factfulness?
Billy, we must be sort of like on the same vibe here, because that's my favorite book.
Yeah. And I love this book, right? So I read it, and one of the things that really struck me was it talks about that 87% of the world's transport, like energy needed for transportation, comes from fossil fuels, like just to kind of, there are 4 different categories, but we'll simplify it that way. And that's just the reality. So as much as we want to have things that are very clean and do that at scale, we have to build the infrastructure to be able to do that. So in the meantime, it is what are the ways that we can have positive impact as we continue to scale and we continue to grow and build the infrastructure. So one of the things that you just mentioned that resonates a lot with me is, yes, in this utopian society, things can happen that way. But more importantly, what is it that we can do day by day to continue to move in that direction that is much cleaner, that is much and much more scalable? Right.
And also, everyone should have a diversified portfolio. So we should have the short-term solutions, the medium and long range.
Yeah, definitely. So I just had to, you kind of left that there. I want to pick that up real quick. But, just really quickly also too, I want to focus on one of the things that I know is really important to you. And we kind of talked around it, but specifically I'd like for you to be able to address how you focus on people, profit, the planet, and green apartments, and specifically the people that you are looking to be able to help with this focus area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In particular, the people that I want to try to help are the busy professionals who don't have the time to research, whether or not this is a deal that will be profitable and make an actual impact. We're interested in measurable environmental or social impact. And a lot of times you can kind of get greenwashed. It's sort of like a marketing thing nowadays. So that's what we really want to protect people for, because once you burn someone once, then they're not going to come back to the cause. So generally speaking, like, we're focused on right now building the platform and connecting all the different game changers, all the different people who are sort of passionate about it, but then also the people who are practical and say, okay, yes, this actually makes a difference, and this is profitable, this is not profitable. And, in the future, when we have decided, on a specific project, then hopefully the investors that we've sort of educated along the way will be ready to invest with us.
Fantastic. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you've got a clear focus area and a clear passion for what you're doing. And as you continue to go out and help to educate people, it's one of those things that I know, well, you tend to get people that will want to chat with you and hear more about what it is and how you can help them. So would you say today that the majority of the people that you're helping or focused on helping are based in Europe or based in the US or based in Asia? Kind of where do those people are they today?
Mm-hmm. Well, so our primary markets that we're looking in are America and Europe. So that's definitely the target area. I'm very fortunate. English is that language that's spoken everywhere. We definitely have it's a blessing, but it's not. It's funny how sometimes people do think, yeah, just in my backyard, but it's not that way.
Yeah. Well, well, you're in the right place because we all believe that here, or the majority of us do. And if we don't, they're probably not going to be here tomorrow. But anyway, yeah. So listen, one thing before we get to the Going Long Final Three, I do want to ask you about Crave the Planet. And so if you could maybe talk to us a little bit about Crave the Planet. And I know this ties into some of the things that we're doing now, but just how people can understand more about what Crave the Planet's all about. Yeah.
So this is a blog that my daughter... After that trip where she inspired me to kind of change career paths at age 40, she and I have started just sort of chronicling our adventures around Europe, usually in the mountains or by the sea. And with my background in health and wellness and physical therapy, just trying to connect the dots and help people find these outdoor experiences that will help their well-being without being boring, because it's, there's all the health information's out there, but you kind of want to see it in the context of beautiful landscapes and, sort of eating and exercise and the good life.
Awesome. Okay. So once again, the Dolomites in that conversation is having another way that you're impacting people positively through your blog. So appreciate you sharing that. And you know what? The thing is, Morgan, we kind of have to get into the Going Long Final Three. And the thing is, I never ask anybody the Going Long Final Three unless they tell me that they're ready. So my question for you is, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Why did I know you were going to say that? I knew you were going to say that. You were born ready. So here we go. So listen, so I started kind of, on this side of the pond because you're on this side of the pond with me, and we're going to finish on this side of the pond, which is awesome. And since you have this European experience, I would always want to know, you've already shared some really amazing places with us so far, but what is your favorite European city, either that you've already visited or still on your bucket list to visit?
Mm-hmm. On my I've visited so many, it's impossible. I yes, and abundance thinking, they're amazing, all these cities. But my bucket list city is Stockholm. I've heard it's one of the most livable places in the world, and I want to see it. So I'm going to book some tickets for August.
Oh, fantastic. I've still not been to Stockholm yet, but yeah, it's one of the places I'm going to go as well. So awesome. So Stockholm it is. And listen, the other thing that this thing that I've noticed about really successful people, like it's a pattern, and I've always get this right. And so the thing is, and since you're also a very successful person, Morgan, like this one trait that all successful people have is that they've only made one mistake in their entire trajectory in getting to the place that they are. Why do I get that wrong every single time? Every time I get it wrong. Maybe it's by design. So no, but the idea is here, look. You're someone who's a very successful person. You've done and had lots of experiences around life. And also the thing that I've also noticed about very successful people is they do something differently, right? And it's, we see that successful people make so many mistakes and make more mistakes probably than most people. However, they tend to focus on what are the lessons that can be learned and applied. So if you could think of maybe all the different mistakes or learning opportunities or however you want to say it that have happened in your life, if you could think of the one lesson that you think would be important to pay forward to the Going Long family, what would that one lesson be?
Look for the connection. So instead of focusing on the technical aspects and, learning all the rules specifically and trying to be perfect in the textbook, it's trying to find the connection between the different parties that can solve the problem. Awesome.
Look for the connection. I love that. That's going down on that's one of my personal favorites. So awesome. So look for the connection, everybody. You've heard it here first. And here's the thing, like we got to go into the very last one of the Going Long Final Three, which is about feeding our brain with knowledge. So what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family, Morgan?
This is kind of ironic, but Factfulness by Hans Rosling.
Awesome. Okay. Factfulness. Yeah, it's a fantastic book and one I've talked about, but this is the first this is the first recommendation, I think. Factfulness, which is
really,
which is phenomenal. I think it, man.
It kind of goes along with your theme of positivity, because he showed that the world is objectively getting better in almost every single domain. Yeah. The fact that extreme poverty is halved in the last 20 years, that everything is getting better, but we think it's not. Yeah. And he points out that it really is an amazing place, and we have to sort of train our brain to see the positive. Yeah, he gives some pretty amazing statistics and stories that support things. So definitely Factfulness, and it's one of my favorites. If you can, you can't see it here on the bookshelf, but if you're watching the video version, it's like in this blurry kind of, you can somewhat see it in the background. But anyway, so thank you for that. So Factfulness, and I'm just thinking to myself, wow, you know what? We started with this little girl in Idaho and had these dreams of being able to get into the Naval Academy, and did a lot of work in track and field and cross country and things like that, and overcame a lot of these different hurdles. 2001, went out, was deployed, and then afterwards coming back, started motherhood. From motherhood, then so many things that were happening in your life, and it was really that one conversation that started right with your child and with your daughter in the Dolomites. And since then that led to a blog. It led to this focus for you in terms of really being able to create what I like to call the power of and realizing that it's not one or the other. It's how can you find and be able to do both things, and being able to really focus on how you can help people across the globe, really understanding the power of being sustainable, and all these different things that are happening, and all these different things that you're focused on, and people that you want to be able to help. I know is like so many people are thinking to themselves, like, how do I get in touch with Morgan? So like, Morgan, help us understand, what is the best way for the Going Long family to get in touch with you, find out more about what you're doing, learn more about your podcast and things like that? Absolutely. So our podcast is called The Art of Sustainable Investing, and I would love you to check it out. We've got quite a broad range, kind of all versions, to kind of get your interest peaked in, some of the interesting opportunities available. But I'm pretty active on LinkedIn under Morgan Fielder. And we have a Facebook group too, where we sort of push out all this, innovative, sustainable and regenerative thinking and projects that are going on all around the world.
All right, fantastic. So definitely go check out the podcast. We're going to leave it in the show notes as well. When you see Morgan on LinkedIn as well, just make sure that you let her know that you heard her here on the Going Long podcast, so you can continue the conversation. It's better for her. It's better for you, which will be absolutely fantastic. So Morgan, so many different things. I really appreciate. This has been awesome. I can't believe the time flies by so quickly. I just want to thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family today. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy.
All right. Appreciate it. And Morgan, if you give me just a couple seconds, I just want to leave a couple of last words with the Going Long family.
Sure.
And listen, everybody, you have an amazing opportunity today to make an impact on someone else's life, like 2 or 3 other people. So take a moment, just share today's episode with 2 or 3 other people. You know that there are people that want to know more about how they can have this art of sustainable investing. And Morgan is an absolute master in this area and has a podcast that's great. And, bring them also too, when you share today's episode, it also helps to bring other like-minded people to the Going Long podcast, which is one of the things that we want to do, have more like-minded people here. And also take a couple seconds just to leave an honest review of the podcast, right? And don't ask for the 5-star review. I just ask for an honest review, an honest written review and rating. I would go through every single one of those, and it's one of the things that we use to continue to make the podcast better for you and be able to attract amazing guests like Morgan, and so that you get more of what it is that you want. So until then, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. I want you to go out, make it a great day, and thank you very much. Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you like today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode. So go out and make it a great day.